Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I am going to be working with our AVA beads today. We got this lovely new sun color in, metallic sun. It's kind of a greenish, yellowy color, and I'll be working with that doing this Appalachian bracelet. So the AVAs are pointed at the top, and they have a hole at the top, and then two holes at the bottom, one on either side of their legs that kind of sit at an angle. For this bracelet, the reason I'm calling it Appalachian is because it has peaks, kind of reminds me of mountains, and we're right near the Appalachian Trail here. So we're going to call this kind of the Appalachian bracelet. And it is featuring a bunch of our exclusive products, the AVA bead, as well as our Potomac crystal rondelles. For the design, I am going to be using, like I said, the sun color of the AVA beads. And then if you need any of these materials, on the left-hand side here, if you're not on a mobile device, we'll do a little pop-up which links to all the different materials if you need to purchase from me online. Or you can go below the video if you don't see the little pop-ups. If you're on a mobile or your computer, sometimes will block them. Underneath the video, there's a little description about what the video is and what is used in it. There, if you press the Show More button or the down arrows, you can get a list there to take into your local Potomac Bead Company, or again, to shop with me online. For the bracelet, we are going to be using AVAs. You could use one color or two colors, and we're going to basically be building the bracelet from the bottom up. So we're going to be doing two different builds here. You will see all the different colors kind of included in this bracelet. In addition to the AVA beads in the sun color, we are going to be using Potomac crystal rondelles. And I'm using the metallic bronze color in the 3x4. Those will kind of sit at the top right here where that metallic blue is. And then along the baseline, I have the, these are the 2x3. And then I have the 3x4 millimeter in that bronze color along the base. I'm going to be using the turquoise Picasso rondelle. So they have that sparkle and shine, both of these, of the crystals, but they're not overpowering. Still lends itself to a little bit of the earth tones. The other beads that are in here are 8O seed beads. They're running along the sides here. And we're going to be using those in the matte metallic khaki iris. Some of you may even have this color at home. It's one of our most popular colors that people are really drawn to and really like. The other thing that runs kind of hidden on the bottom, but you do see a little bit, are the bricks. So they're the two-holed bricks. And the bricks here are in the vintage copper color. So the vintage copper bricks. And again, they will run kind of right along the base of the bracelet. The bracelet will have a tiny bit of an arching effect to it just because of its design. It would lend itself well to be a bangle if you don't want to do a clasp. However, I am going to be doing a clasp, and I'm going to be using a cup button. I'll be using the metallic bronze cup button in here. One idea, if you are doing cup buttons or you like cup buttons, we do sell them in these 30 packs. They're $25 for 30 of them. And then you get a whole bunch of you get 30 different colors and 30 different varieties that you can pick up and use all the different ones with your different bracelets. So I'm just going to be opening a pack of these and picking out my color. It's fun also, you never know, you might kind of lay it out and find another color that goes with the design. The color that's going to run along the top and kind of snake back between the sun is going to be a nice opposing color of 15O seed beads. And these are Miyuki 15Os in the Duracoat galvanized dark berry color. And we're going to be, like I said, running those kind of right along the crystals at the top. We are going to be using one needle. So those of you that are fans of one needle, yay, it's just one needle. And we are using a size 10 English beading needle. I like the Pony brand, but there's a bunch of other brands out there. You could use a size 12 too if you prefer the thinner needle. You want to have a thread burner or a cord cutter handy. This is the Wildfire cord cutter that I have here at the studio at the store. And it does the job. It's going to kind of heat up at the end, burn through the thread, help us cut the thread off of our spool of thread, and then also fuse it down at the end. As far as thread goes, I'll be using some 0.006 Wildfire beading thread, and I have the white color sitting near me. You could use green too with these colors, either one. I just happen to have the white sitting here, so that's what I'll use. And we shouldn't see too much thread, so it's not going to really matter what thread color you use. But I'm using that 0.006 inches or 0.15 millimeter, depending on how you want to look at it and where you're from. The other tool that I have sitting handy is a needle nose pliers to flatten out the end of the thread and make it easier to thread the needle once the end of the cording or the thread is actually burned by the thread burner. It creates a little bit of a balling effect. You can go in then with your pliers, flatten that little ball and kind of flange it out, and that's going to make it easier for you to get it through the eye of the needle. You also want a nice workable surface. I have just that bead mat material here. You can also work on a bead on it board or bead mats in other colors as well, and just have a nice clean workable surface because it's going to make it easier for you. To get started on the design, we are going to start kind of on the baseline and then work our way out. So the baseline is going to consist of the bigger of the crystals. So there's the 3x4 millimeter crystals. And then from the 3x4 millimeter crystals, you're also going to want to have your bars, or your bricks, I'm sorry. So get your bricks in there and your crystals laid out. Because it is an up and back project multiple times, we're not going to worry about our cut button at first, so we are going to start with a stop bead. Go ahead and start with about 5 feet of your beading thread on your needle and lay out those 2 types of beads. So to get started, like I said, we have out our bricks here and our 3x4 millimeter rondelles. I have an 11-0 in a galvanized silver color here that I'm going to put on my thread to work as a stop bead. Again, I have about 5 feet of beading thread, and a stop bead is usually used just to keep the beads from falling off the thread, which is going to be the same case here, and it will eventually come off the project. I'm only going to leave about 2 to 3 inches of a tail after that stop bead, and I'm pulling the thread through once and through twice through that 11-0 seed bead. After it comes through the 11-0 seed bead 2 times, that seed bead is pretty secure and not going to fall off the thread, which is going to allow you to add your baseline or your bottom row. That bottom row again is going to be right down the center, and it is the bricks along with the 3x4 millimeter rondelles. So that being said, this is the easiest part of the bracelet. You're going to pick up a rondelle, brick, rondelle, brick. Literally, that is your pattern. For if you're doing about a 7-inch bracelet, you want to do about 6 3/4 inch of this. If you want to do a 7 1/4 bracelet, you're looking more at about 7 inches, depending on the size of the clasp and how the clasp is added and everything. But literally, you're going to go ahead and take your time and just do your pattern. One thing you want to make sure whenever you're working with multi-hold or 2-hold beads is that each of the beads that you're picking up does have 2 holes. That way you don't need to come back through the project later on only to find out that one of those holes is blocked and go back 7 inches or so in order to solve that problem. So this is the starting pattern, which eventually then these will go every which way and an AVA bead will sit inside. At the end of the line, when you have it the length that you need to, and I have mine on my wrist because it will slightly shrink up just a tiny little bit. I have mine so that my ends are touching, and that way it'll sit comfortably by the time it goes then around my wrist that I'll be able to put a clasp on. After you get your baseline, you want to lay out some 15-0 seed beads, a couple of your 8-0, and your AVA beads, because we're going to go back down the row now and create them. When you're looking at the end here, I'm going to pull out that last one just so you can see here. We're going to be adding the AVAs on the sides of, or in between rather, the bricks. There's going to be a 15-0 on either side of the brick that we add in, and we're going to add into the first or the bottom holes of the AVA bead. We're going to do this down one side, which is going to allow us to pick up every other brick that we have. In between the AVAs then, we'll add a 15-0 and an 8-0, and then add the next AVA down in line. To get from the last crystal to the second back bead, you're going to skip the first brick that's at the end. You're going to go to the second one. What we're going to do is we're going to add 7 of our 15-0s onto the thread, and those are going to go right next to your crystal. After that, we're going to get ready for our AVA pattern. So go ahead and add one of your 8-0 seed beads. Push that first brick off to the side. add into your AVA. So we have our 15 O's on, 1 8-0, and through the first hole of the base of one of the AVA beads. This is going to get bent back towards this last little, second to last bar, or brick rather, sorry. To go through the brick then, we're going to add a 15 O onto our needle, go through the brick, pulling the thread, and I know you have a lot of thread, so it's kind of annoying. When you're out that second hole, you're going to add another 15 and then pick up the second hole of the base of the AVA bead. Once I get it on here and lay it out, it'll make way more sense in kind of explaining it. So there you have it. So we added on our 7 15-0s, 1 8-0, and then we added on our AVA through the first hole there, 15-0 through the brick, 15-0 through the second hole of the AVA. The next brick is going to be bent backwards because we're going to only be doing every other. We'll come back then and attach AVAs to the other side. That's how we get this zigzagged Appalachian kind of mountain effect. So right now we're just going to be working down the right-hand side of this bracelet. In between the AVA beads that we add, we're going to add in a 15-0 and an 8-0 seed bead, and then pick up the AVA bead. Go through the first hole of the AVA, and then after the first hole of the AVA, add a 15-0, go through that fourth brick in line, pull the thread on through, which will pull the AVA in, add another 15-0, and go through the second hole along the bottom of the AVA, and pull that one in as well. So you can see how it's going to kind of sit a little bit. It will start to curve a tiny bit as you're working with it. Don't worry, as you add the AVA on the second side, it'll make up for that curvature that's going on. Again, as we're working between the AVAs, you're going to put an 15 and an 8-0, and then through the first hole of your AVA bead. Again, because the AVAs do have multiple holes, you just want to make sure that all the AVA beads that you are using, because the check production process sometimes can miss a hole or it can get clogged, that they do have the holes. A lot of times you can actually poke your needle through, especially if you're using a size 10 needle. You can poke your needle through and get some of the coating or some of the residue off, and you'll be able to use that bead. That's going to be very common with any of the multi-hole beads. So you're going to continue down this right-hand side, adding in your AVA beads on every other one of the brick beads, right along the baseline. So if you need to, you can kind of just look back and make sure that those are added, and the 15 and the 8 right between. Eventually then these will kind of pop up towards the middle and lay right along our 3x4 millimeter rondelle crystals. So I'm at the end of the line here, having added in my first row of my AVA beads, and I'll kind of make them sit and cooperate so you can see exactly what's going on there and the look that you're getting. And what we're going to be doing is going from the outside of this AVA bead here, and we're going to be skipping over from the outside of the AVA bead, just like we did on the other side here, by adding an 8-0 and then our 7 15-0s. And we're actually going to take our threaded needle back through that crystal rondelle. Trying not to knot up your thread. As I pull that thread through, you can see it just creates a little kind of arch like it did on the opposite end. On this side then, what we're going to be doing is coming out of the rondelle. We're going to add some of our 15-0s and then get ready to put on our first AVA bead on this side. As you look at the AVA beads going either which way here, you're going to notice that the AVA beads are going to sit opposite of the AVA beads on the other side. That's because we're going to be picking up the bars here or the bricks here on the opposite end. So we're going to be adding them in the same fashion that we did on the opposite side with the 15-0 and the 8-0 on the sides, as well as the 15-0s between that brick there. To get the first one in place, we are going to add 5 of our 15-0s onto our needle, 1 of our 8-0s, and then pick up your first AVA bead on the opposite side. Going through the AVA then, pull your thread the whole way through the AVA. Go ahead and grab a 15-0, go through the brick that's there. I'll get my bricks all mixed in here with my thread. Add another brick or another 15-0 on the other opposite side of the brick. And then go through the second bottom hole of the AVA. So a lot of people will refer to the AVA as a 3-hole bead since the bottom is kind of disconnected or disjoined. Give a nice little pull, and that'll get, let me move those out of the way so you can see, that will get the first AVA bead on this opposite side. Naturally, like I said, it's going to kind of want to bend and turn. When we get the AVAs or those peaks of those Appalachian peaks to actually sit up, it'll solve all those problems. So don't worry about that too much. But you're going to run down this second line here, adding all of your AVAs to the second of the bricks that are in line. So every other brick is going to get that AVA. Again, after the AVAs, you're going to do a 15-0 and an 8-0, and then pick up your next of your AVA beads and put them in between those bricks with the 15-0s on either side. Now that I'm at the end of adding my AVA beads down the second or left-hand row, I'm going to finish off the end just like I did previously, where I'm adding 5 of my 15-0s. And then I'm going to go into my baseline, which is that rondelle, as well as into that first one of my bricks. Pulling the thread through, pull it nice and tight. I'm going to show a tiny bit of thread here right along the side of my brick, going through the brick as well as the 15-0 and coming out the end of the AVA. Now's the fun part where I actually get to kind of zigzag back and forth. To go from the bottom hole to the top hole of that last AVA bead, go ahead and add 5 15-0 seed beads on your needle. You're going to skip up for the first hole, or I'm sorry, the top hole then, of that first AVA bead. You can see those beads just kind of decorate this side so you don't see any thread. We now get to pull the bracelet design up and get that arching effect. So you can see we kind of get to go right along that baseline of our arch. We're going to go through the baseline of the arch, adding in the crystals, those 2 by 3 millimeter crystals. Then we're going to come back down the baseline, zigzagging the opposite way, adding in the 15-0s as well. If you like one way or the other, you don't necessarily have to zigzag both ways, so I'll show you kind of an opportunity that you can stop if you would like to. When we do get to the end here, we'll put on our clasp, and then as we come back through to the top and finish off, we'll put on the other end of the clasp. So to get started, we are going to start with our crystals. So I have them laid out here, those 2 by 3 millimeter crystals. And I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, and I did neglect to, you will need 2 packages of AVAs, or you could do 2 different colors. I ended up using 24 of my AVA beads. To come down along the sides into a group, very simple. Crystal goes on, catch the top hole of the AVA that sits across. Another crystal goes on, top hole of the AVA that sits across. And when you pull those then, you're going to get that Appalachian effect with the AVA zigzagging right along the top. And here's where I'm saying you can, if you want to, just stop and not have the crystals also, or the seed beads also zigzagging back and forth. I like the look of the 15-0s zigzagging back and forth, so I'll be coming back down the project as well. So literally all we're doing now is running back and forth down the line, making that little peaks sit up of our little mountain trail here. Adding in our crystal and having them sit up. So you can continue basically connecting all of your AVA beads, depending on how many you have. If you have 24 like me, or 26, 28. And when you pick it up, you can see that it will bend a tiny bit. You will see, if you don't do seed beads, you will see a tiny bit of thread between the crystals. If you don't want to do the 15 O's, you could also add the 3x4 millimeter crystals right along the top. So there's another idea for you as well. But I'm going to continue going through and adding in the peaks and bringing the two AVAs together. So now we have the arch of our AVA beads kind of completed. And like I said, we're going to go back in and add some seed beads. But now as we're at the end of the bracelet, I do want to go ahead and add in my cup button. So when I'm adding in my cup button, I'm going to pick that bronze color that kind of matches my crystals here. We're coming out of the end of one of our AVA beads. What we're going to do is get to the baseline, to where that actual stop bead is. And if I kind of flip the bracelet over, you can see it a little bit more. To get the bracelet, or to get to the baseline, we're going to come down the AVA like we did on the other side, adding in 5 of our 15 O seed beads, going then from the top hole of that AVA to the bottom hole of that AVA. Once we come through that last AVA bead, you're also going to go through the 15 O and that brick. That will pop those 15s right on the side of the AVA and kind of disguise some of the thread. From there, I want you to take the thread back through that last brick and out through the crystal. Give a nice tight yank so you make sure that your AVA beads are nice and sitting up right along the whole line here of the bracelet, and you don't have any extra thread showing. I'm going to keep that stop bead on for now because I'm going to add my button. Once the button is added, we'll kind of reinforce it, and then we'll take the stop bead off and actually tie the thread end to there. To put on the button, go ahead and go through your last two 15 O's coming out of that crystal. I'm going to go through the two 15 O's that are right, or 3. We'll go through 3 because my needle went through 3. 3 15 O's coming out right after that crystal. Once I'm out there, I'm going to go up the back of the cup button, coming out the front. And when I come out the front, I'm going to add a little bit of color in the form of my 3x4 millimeter crystal. So I'll go ahead and add the 3x4 millimeter crystal with a 15 O on either side. Come back down the other side of the cup button. And when I'm on the other side of the cup button here, I'm going to add 3 more 15 O's. And so back into the crystal. And then I'll kind of pull that in. So you have it nice and kind of pulled in tightly there. Once that button is there and pulled in, we're going to go ahead and reinforce the button. To do so, I did take my threaded needle through the last of the brick, and I'm going to go back through the brick again and follow the thread line, so I'm going the whole way through the cup button again to reinforce. Once I'm reinforced, I'm going to go ahead and take off this stop bead and tie off my threads. So I'm going to kind of flip over to the back of the bracelet here, go through that brick, through the 15, through the AVA and the 8. Through the couple crystals sitting there, or the couple 15 O's sitting there. Go through 4 of them. Move that stop bead out of the way so you can see what's going on. And from there then we're going to go up through the crystal, or sorry, up through the cup button towards the crystal. Go down through the cup button on the other side. If you want, you can also go through those beads. It's kind of up to you. And then down through the 3 15 O's on the opposite side of that cup button. Once I come down through those 3 15 O's, what I want you to do is go ahead and take the stop bead off and tie those in a knot. So I'm going to go in here and kind of finagle my stop bead off. Sometimes you're able to pull the stop bead off. This one's being nice and gentle. I'm pulling that stop bead right off, giving a nice tight pull to the end of that thread. Kind of turning to the back of the project, and I'm going to tie those two thread ends together. Doing this 3 times. Taking my thread burner, then making sure I'm only holding onto the tail. I'm going to burn down just a little bit so I don't have that tail kind of in my way. That extra piece kind of throw off to the side, and I'm going to keep that little 1/8 of an inch or so, 1/4 of an inch of tail on for now, just so I have it, and I'll go in then and burn down the edge. From there, you're going to go through your crystal. Not getting caught around your button. We're going to go through our crystal, and we are going to basically work our way back through to come out the top of that last AVA bead again. So that poor brick that we keep going back through, we're going to double back through that brick and then up the side of the AVA bead like we did previously. So back through the brick. Reverse the thread of the brick here. Again, making sure that you're not attached on your clasp. My thread wants to go around that clasp. Reversing the thread then back on that brick. Back through the 15-0, out the AVA, and then back up through the top of the AVA bead. If your thread gets caught on any 15s or anything, just grab it and yank it. I'm going to then go up through those 5 along the side of the AVAs. And then once I'm along the 5 of the AVAs and I'm coming out the side, I'm going to go through the AVA bead. And we're going back now towards the opposite end. And to kind of make it sit up and make that pretty peak go nice, we're going to add in 4 of our 15-0s in between, just going around the actual 3x4 millimeter that's already there. If you want to, you can add 5 seed beads. I'll do 4. And you're literally just skipping over the crystal that's already there. This is just going to kind of give you that zigzagging effect. And then the crystal will just kind of pop out from below. So 4 seed beads go on, and these are 15-0s again, and through the next AVA bead. So again, just kind of really ignoring the fact that the crystals are even there. This also gives the AVA bead an opportunity to kind of sit up more erect. 4 more go on, and through the other AVA. So I'm just going to continue back down the project now, going back and forth kind of along the AVA bead, running those 15-0s, snaking right down along the project with those 15-0s going in 4 at a time, skipping over the crystals and coming right down so they look like they're kind of capturing the crystals in place. As you get to the bottom here of that kind of zigzagging around effect, we're going to get ready to drop down to that crystal again and do the loop for our cup button to sit in. If you do have the problem, and I should have said this earlier because I pulled tightly, if you do have the problem that the kind of bangle style is not what you're looking for and you don't want it to sit super tight around your wrist, one thing, don't tie off your end thread with a thread that you have going through your cup button. What that will allow you to do is actually loosen up the baseline as you get to the very end. So instead of burning it down, tying it off, just continue on with your design, keeping that stop bead on. Then when you get a chance, you can kind of remove that stop bead and let the thread have a little bit more room to breathe. That way you'll be able to arch your project a little bit more. When I'm here at the end, what I'm going to do again is drop down basically to that crystal, going through the 5 seed beads on the last AVA bead. And then I'm going to scoot down some of the seed beads here along the edge. I'll have 3. And I'm going to come out of, and then I'm going to start my loop. My loop you can do with either the 15-0s or the 8-0s. That's kind of up to you. I'm actually going to do a mixture because I have them on my map, so I might as well mix them all together. So you can just kind of pick them up at random or do a pattern of 2, 1, 2. You want your loop to be big enough that your button will fit through, but not too, too big that it'll have a lot of room to move around, because then it's more likely that you'll actually lose the bracelet. But I'm just going in here, kind of picking up my beads at random. I have just the pattern of 1 to 1. And I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more. I usually use this opportunity when I'm doing the loop style of my clasp to clean up my bead bat. So I kind of clean up all the little ones still sitting around. And as I go in and finish them, I'm going to make sure that the loop will match the clasp. So making sure that the loop will actually fit the clasp through it. As I go in, then I'm going to go ahead and basically reinforce the clasp, just like we did on the other side where we kind of go back into the crystal. I'm going to go back into the crystal, but 2 beads before the crystal on the opposite side of the 15-0s. And that's going to kind of close up my loop here. I'll show you. Sometimes with the 15-0s, you kind of have to be gentle and do a little tug on your needle, especially those Duracoats. They have a fair amount of coating on them, so they have a little bit of a smaller hole seaming. You're going to go through your crystal, go through that last brick, go through the brick on the other way, go through the AVA bead here, so kind of just like we did on the other side, catching in, because you want to make sure that it sits correctly. Go through those 15-0s on the other side and reinforce then through the 8s and the 15s all the way over to your loop. As you go through the end of the project then, and you're go ahead and you're just going to tie off your thread along the project, and then we'll burn it down. I forgot to mention also at the beginning that if you do like to glue your thread ends, Super New Glue is the brand that I usually have sitting handy and that I use to do my thread ends. And I have the needle coming back through here and kind of reinforcing. Because it was a tight fit through those 15-0s, I'm not going to take it back through those 15-0s. I'm going to start this as my opportunity to kind of take it back along the project and knot off my threads along the actual work. When I knot off my threads, I bring the thread back, pick up a bridge thread or a connector thread, make a loop, and then sew through that loop, making a knot. And I'll do this several times along the project, kind of taking my thread back. Sometimes I'll even double back through, so we'll kind of reverse it back through one of those bricks if we need to. After I have a couple of my knots, I'll go ahead in then and burn off my thread. I'll go to the original side as well and burn down that thread also. Once you're done with your design, you have that fun kind of peak effect going on where you have the AVAs going along the middle and arching there and creating that fun design look. Again, if you need any of the materials to make this bangle-like Appalachian bracelet, you can go back to the beginning of the video to the little drop-down menu where we list the items along the side with the little links. If you don't have that below the video, that little drop down, that show more button. Again, if you need any of the materials, you can order from me online and stay connected with us at PotomacBeads.com. Enter our mailing list there and get regular updates from us and coupons as well. You can also go into your local Potomac Bead Company store and shop there also. You can also stay connected with us on Facebook and through Twitter and all those good things, Instagram. If you really want to stay connected with us, you can also join our group for beading and jewelry making. There you'll have an opportunity to interact with other users on Facebook that love to make jewelry, love the designs, and you can actually kind of share the design example with them, what you're doing, what you're making, and give them kind of a heads up as far as how you see kind of what you're using product-wise. They can answer questions. It's just really a great beading community. So as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching this Appalachian bracelet. Have fun making and playing with the AVAs, getting them in that point design. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a great rest of your evening.